I want to hand over now to New York, hand over to John Lee, who's going to introduce a session called Pivoting in the Pandemic. John Lee.
Welcome everyone to Pivoting in a Pandemic, lockdown, but still serving communities. Great to be back virtually with old friends and new friends in Belfast for this online edition of New York, New Belfast. And my background is in public relations, where I work for Goodman Media International, and I'm also president of the Irish Business Organization of New York. And in both of those areas, we've certainly had to pivot in a pandemic, both of our company, our clients, and in the Irish Business Organization, the IBO. We were on digital meetings by the end of March. We've had 6 digital events so far. We've got 3 planned this month. And despite the difficulties, we're seeing opportunities as well emerge that we hadn't realized before. So we're going to take a look at this in our kind of transatlantic view of pivoting in a pandemic with Anita Farmer of AF Consultancy Ireland, Ciaran Doherty of Huhtamaki, located in Belfast, a Finnish company located in Belfast, Gareth Macklin, director of OBBI. Is it the OBBI or by the initials?
OBBI, that's us, yeah.
Very good. Aidan, Connolly, executive director down the street from me here at the Irish Arts Center in New York, and Kevin Gamble of Féile and Phobail. Is that good? So I'd like to start it off and give everybody an opportunity to kind of address the question. And Anita, I'm going to start with you. Your background is in excise tax management and management consulting in general. I know I've kind of hit on 2 things you've done recently, helping get poteen as a classified spirit in the UK, and getting the first whiskey distillery approved in Northern Ireland for over 125 years. How does a distillery pivot in the face of a pandemic?
Well, actually quite easily. One of the key needs in the pandemic was for hand sanitizer. And the World Health Organization put out a formula that heavily lent towards ethanol. Now, not all distilleries are able to produce high ABV quality alcohol, but they're able to move their business. They have the processes and the equipment in place. So every distillery was willing to do what they could. Well, how did I get involved? I got involved in the government. Having a distillery approval doesn't allow you to produce denatured alcohol, which is what you need for the hand sanitizer. So my role was to directly communicate with the government and find a way to make it easier for that to happen. Now, Northern Ireland companies or distilleries in Northern Ireland actually set the precedent for the rest of the UK. We were about a week ahead of the rest of the UK in moving so that the distilleries were able to produce the hand sanitizer. So it was relatively easy. There was a great need, as everybody knows. So it was something that was very rewarding. It also meant that distilleries had to communicate with other businesses, because traditionally, what do you put your product in? So for me and for all the distilleries, it gave a great opportunity to explore other avenues. What could we do in the future within the industry that actually could involve some of the companies that we had been engaging with throughout this pandemic? It's been very rewarding for me, because I then became the person that everybody went through. So if you needed to speak to the government, you came to me, I spoke to the government on your behalf. If you needed a contact, you came to me. I know everybody in the industry, so I was able to do that. We had great support from further education colleges that I knew would have ethanol, and they were able to donate it. Pharmaceutical companies that I worked with, they came on board and donated ethanol. So there was a great willingness here. I will say that was one very key feature, that right from the very beginning, the willingness of the business community, and particularly the spirits industry, were very keen to do their part. And we believe that each distillery here in Northern Ireland, donated about £40,000 worth of product to the cause. Now, that wasn't to say that they didn't, obviously, people purchase product from them, but in terms of donating, and that's about £500,000 in a very, very small industry in Northern Ireland that was donated to the cause. So, yeah, I think that for me, pivoting was relatively straightforward. We engaged early with the government. The government came on board really quickly. So, you know, it is a way to move forward. It also allowed us to learn some lessons, you know, things that had been done in the past. Could we do them differently? What was the best way to engage with the government? What was the best way collectively as distilleries to operate? You know, we needed all to work together for this to be successful. So you couldn't have one distillery going out on their own. It was only successful because everybody worked together.
I think that's going to be some themes that we're going to see for the rest of the discussion. And I'd like to reserve some of that single cask 12-year-old hand sanitizer. If you could hold it.
Wow, save that for next year. Save that for next year's conference.
Ciaran, we're going to move to you next, and I think you might be kind of moving along similar lines to Anita. You're the UK General Manager for Huhtamaki, a leader in food packaging, and your major customers, McDonald's, KFC, Costa, Starbucks, their demands were lessening, but other demands were opening up. What need did you see, and how did you fill it? If you could unmute, there you go.
Yeah, thanks, John. Yes, whenever this pandemic kicked off, a lot of our key customers, like what you mentioned there, McDonald's, Costa, Starbucks, Burger King, started to close down, and we were left in a really difficult position where we had to, across the 6 sites across the UK, lay off approximately 1,200 or 1,300 workers in the space of a week. Just at that time, I became aware of another company here in Northern Ireland called Block Blinds, who were really innovatively looking at how they could produce face shields for healthcare. At that time, those guys were producing 10 or 20,000 face shields in the first couple of weeks into healthcare. I contacted them and suggested that we could have a look at that to see if we could use our packaging equipment to industrialize the scale of that production. So very quickly, we became in intense discussions with Block Blinds, and between us, our 2 teams redesigned the product to make it able to be produced in an industrial scale. We secured a very, very significant order with NHS in Northern Ireland for the face shields. Got ourselves up to a position where we were producing. After 2 weeks, we were in a position where we were producing 3 million face visors a week, up from 20,000. And only as recently as last Thursday, we've just secured a brand new order into NHS in England, where we believe we're now the single biggest provider of face shields into the NHS across the UK. And we're up beyond 4 million face visors a week. It's been incredibly quick innovation for our business. I mean, we had never, through the Belfast plant, ever produced anything else, only paper-based food packaging. We're now extremely large producers of face shields, which is a PET plastic type product. So every single one of our processes through the factory had to be repurposed to be able to handle that new material. Exciting time for us, John. We think that we're pretty sure that not only have we got really busy during the downtime, the pandemic, we're actually a lot busier now than we were before the pandemic hit. But even more excitingly than that, we think that this PPE for healthcare is going to be a long-term product range for our business, and we are in the process now of expanding the process throughout our factories around the world.
Yeah, and there's a really nice video on your Huhtamaki website that shows you with the man from the Blinds company going through the process of retooling and all the workers, working on the new products, the face shields. Recommended.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Gareth, I'd like to move to you now. You're the founder of OBBI Solutions and a director with the Macklin Group. And I think for you, the pivot was maybe a more natural progression, because you already had this software solutions in the compliance training and safety arena. So those are going to be extremely big themes in the coronavirus pandemic. Tell us about your pivoting to meet those needs.
I'm glad, John, you thought they were more natural, because you obviously didn't see our office for the last couple of months and the lack of going to bed. So as you said, yeah, OBBI, so it was a product we've created over the last couple of years, very much in that compliance, safety and training. And the problem we identified was sort of trying to bring those things together. We've been working for the last 18 months, which ironically, our sort of full launch date was the 1st of April this year. So we brought on different clients at different stages. The product on the 1st of April was completely ready to rock and roll. And then we sat down and went, well, our typical client is manufacturing and construction companies of maybe sort of slightly larger, maybe north of 100 staff. Obviously, we sat down like everybody else and went, okay, where's all our business just went in the last sort of 7-10 days? And what do we do? So as you said, sort of within probably the first few days, we recognized exactly that sort of compliance, training and safety was going to be completely different to deal with this coronavirus that obviously nobody knew anything before, but there is new compliance requirements, there is new training requirements, and there's new safety requirements. So very quickly we sat down and we pulled the entire team together. And whilst I wish it was just like you said, sort of a nice natural progression, realistically it was sort of 16, 17, 18 hours a day minimum, or probably about 30, 32 days straight. And we launched an entire new product, which again, a bit like Ciaran, sort of pivoted. But in summary, we've taken advice and guidance from multiple different sort of trade organisations, the Health and Safety Executive. And in summary, we got together lots of sort of government-led COVID guidance training packages. We then created a brand new product within 14 days, which is now a complete health screening. So again, we have the ability to take staff who, before they come to work, our remit was basically trying to manage the safety and get people safely, effectively back to work. Whereas traditionally, when they were in work, we looked after them a lot better. So staff now can get up in the morning and do all their screening from home. So probably the big difference was, ordinarily we were working within Northern Ireland and just starting to expand out into sort of the Republic of Ireland and into GB. And overnight, whilst we were dealing with manufacturing construction, we started getting an awful lot of inward inquiries from, pharmacy, charity, as far away from Australia. So, yeah, a lot of change in that side of things. But thankfully, a bit like Ciaran, that was 2 months ago, and now it's what I call the new normal. So,
excellent. Well, these have been some three very business-oriented pivots. Kevin Gamble has some other challenges in running Féile Phobail. I got a chance to meet Kevin a couple of years ago, and I learned about the great, multifaceted event: music, comedy, talks, tours, theaters, debate. And pretty quickly, that all had to change. The format had to change. The outreach had to change. How did that go for you, Kevin?
Yeah, well, I suppose like most of the other guys that have mentioned, John, we had to react very quickly. Anyone who puts together programs of the scale we do, we usually have around 400 events as part of our August Festival across 40 different venues right across the whole city, using a multitude of art forms, which you've already alluded to. And we were probably 80% of the way completed in that around about the middle of March. And then all of a sudden, we realised that because of the COVID pandemic, that it wasn't going to be feasible and realistic to hold a physical festival with live audiences and artists and contributors to the festival coming from all different parts of the world. So we very quickly moved to saying that we were going to do a virtual festival. And I suppose at that stage, even though we said it, we didn't really know what a virtual festival looked like, how it would be produced, how it would be consumed, and how we go about doing that, to be fair. So we very quickly pulled together all of our resources in terms of our staff, our volunteers. We have around 7 subcommittees of different expertise who help pull the programme together each year, along with our funders and community stakeholders. And we just asked a simple question, which was, can we afford not to do the festival? And the simple answer was no. We had to put something on. Féile and Phobail has been going now for over 32 years, and regardless of what's been going on around us, whether it was the conflict here in the north or when we had the foot and mouth disease epidemic here on the island of Ireland, we always managed to put a festival on. And through the arts, we always seen that, you know, people use the arts and look to the arts for that sense of community spirit and the lift spirits, you know, when times were tough. So we thought it was a perfect platform to try and use the arts to showcase everything that was great about what the communities were doing. And I think, you know, nobody would be surprised that artists and arts organisations were nearly the first ones to react to the pandemic. You know, you've seen the amount of artists who were putting out free content, the amount of concerts that were going online, arts galleries, you know, doing virtual tours. And the arts world really rallied to that. I mean, you even seen the likes of Netflix in terms of subscriptions go up massively because people turned to film to the arts to help understand what they were doing. So, I mean, we very quickly tried to deconstruct, or suppose reconstruct, our festival programme from 400 events and 40 venues down to around 100 manageable events now, where we'll still hit all of our key platforms. And potentially we're also seeing this as an opportunity to reach bigger audiences. I mean, we've never had a digital festival as part of our own programme. So we're very much looking at this as one, yes, we're having to curtail our activities this year. And it's a big shame that we're not able to bring, you know, 100,000 people who usually come to the August Festival each year on the island of Ireland into West Belfast and show them that famous welcome that we're famous for, and show that, you know, the up-and-coming emerging artists from this island, but also bringing international artists and festival contributors into West Belfast for the local community to engage with. But it's provided that opportunity to literally put the festival into people's homes through a digital platform. You can sit back, whether in the US, whether in Europe, Australia, anywhere in the island of Ireland, and watch the festival this year, which we're hoping will be a big opportunity for us. And if anything, ideally when we get back to some type of normal, maybe in 2021, we'll now always have the opportunity to have a digital format of our festival run alongside the actual physical festival. So we're not in any way wanting to replace that atmosphere and the engagement and the I suppose how people consume the arts by being there in person. And we hope that, you know, in next year's time, people will travel and venues and arts galleries will be packed again and concert halls. But for now, we're bringing the festival to you. And we hope in a year or two's time, then you come to us.
Thank you, Kevin. I'm sure Aidan, our next speaker, shares some of your experience here. He's the executive director of the Irish Arts Centre, and he not only had a full program of events rolling out, he also had a building going up, and both of those things had to come to a stop. Aidan, I'd love to hear an update on both of those from you.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks, John, and greetings to my fellow panelists and to everybody watching. I guess I would want to just start by saying that our hearts are with the family of George Floyd and victims of racism and discrimination everywhere, and with our Black family friends and colleagues as we endure the current challenges and enduring challenges of racism in our country and around the world. As regards the pandemic, the other crisis we're all facing, I think for us, yeah, as you mentioned, we have been dealing with a lot of the things that most performing arts organizations would be dealing with, as well as the special version of this that we get running the $60 million capital project with about, I don't know, four or so months of construction remaining in a 20-month project. So I'll unpack that in a second, but I guess, you know, in a situation like this, you have to just sort of break it down into your values ultimately at the end of the day. And so for us, we were really focusing first on our people, at the end of the day, making sure our audiences were safe. So indeed, we canceled all of our programming initially from March through the end of the season. Wanted to make sure our employees were safe, make sure that we had, you know, business continuity, we could keep the money moving, keep the access to information happening, and so like a lot of organizations and businesses, we have been struck by the extent to which administratively we've really been able to keep the engine running super successfully. So that's been great, and thankfully all of our everybody in our immediate orbit is safe and healthy, and so that's been gratifying, because obviously in New York, as you well know, John, we've been really dealing with a lot of loss and a lot of heartbreak, and so our hearts are with all of our folks who are enduring that now. and or enduring just the fear and uncertainty that even though we're starting to, sort of put our toe in the water of dialing back some of the restrictions, it's still an enduring challenge for sure. So we had to then look at obviously the short-term risks, making sure that, like all businesses, looking at short-term cash, making sure that you know what your cash flow is going to be in the 90 days, 120 days, 6 months, a year, trying to figure out some way to forecast how your fundraising and philanthropy is going to respond. For us in that environment, obviously we were going to be without box office revenue for the immediate foreseeable future. So obviously coming up with methodologies to try to, game that out as best you can, trying to communicate as well as possible with all of our stakeholders, government, donors, audience. And then crucially, we had more than 85 artists and freelancers immediately affected in terms of folks who are going to be programming with us across the range of disciplines in our organization. So as we look to continue to sustain our mission, that's where we started. We said, okay, we have these 85 artists and freelancers who we'd had sort of on the docket for the next 3 months. How can we start with them to develop and implement our digital profile? And there we've been, again, extraordinarily fortunate. We do film everything we do. So we had a large archive of material to draw from to kind of project an immediate presence, and we commissioned artists to create new introductions to that material. We commissioned a range of artists to create material from their homes. So we had a lot of contemporaneous material that's in our At Home with Irish Arts Center platform and the Live from Irish Arts Center platform. And then actually, perhaps the immediate heroes and heroines of this for us have been our teachers. We teach 40 classes in language, music, dance, history, and a range of other cultural forms for the community. And our teachers immediately mobilized to re-platform our classes online. So we were able to get 26 of our classes of our 40 that we would normally do platformed online. Within the space of a couple of weeks, we had that set up. And our spring education has been fantastic, and that's where really some opportunities come in. We've developed our first summer term, and we expect that our platform for education will continue to include that digital frame moving forward. As relates to construction, we risk managed the hell out of this project. I'm not sure we fully had a pandemic in our list of uncertainties. But look, that's why you try to steward these projects as best you can and ensure that you've got some contingencies. You're trying to stay on time and on budget, not for what you know is going to happen, but for that unknown thing that might happen. And of course, that's hit us. So we have been suspended for the better part of 3 months in terms of construction. Thankfully, this week we are back on site with the phase 1 reopening in New York City. But that, of course, provides, a huge hit to our contingencies, a huge hit to our budget. But, again, we've got great people. So as long as we take care of our people and we communicate well, we feel like we can pull through this. Obviously, facing huge uncertainty in our sector. We all kind of have a different version of this, different revenue profiles, different audience profiles. But at the end of the day, we're quite keenly focused on, trying to understand what the best planning horizon is. And then how we can what's the best bridge we can build from here to there.
This is great. I'd love to keep this going. I think the walk-off music is going to start in a moment, but I'll just try to maybe summarize some of the things I heard. That everybody seemed to get some energy from working with people outside of their usual walk of life. You start collaborating with other kinds of people that you haven't collaborated with before, or collaborated with your own workers, as Gareth brought up, in a way you hadn't collaborated before. That you learn things from this experience that you're going to take back to the new normal. Kevin mentioned, keep up the virtual aspect of the festival. It's a great addition, brings people from all over the world. And I think this panel of master pivoters here, we all saw the some upside on being outside of our comfort zones that we're going to bring back to when things get back to whatever the new normal is. It's been a great pleasure to have you here with us, and I look forward to meeting you all in person for the first time or again sometime soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, mate.